you just invent that? Is that a real thing? Lieutenant Justin Newsom, Justinnesom. We're here today to talk about murder number 24. It happened on November. Let me start over. Are we talking about just going to the child endangerment?
Whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever you're prepared to talk about.
Yeah. On December 2nd, we filed abandoning and endangering a child charges on Irwin Pentland. Those charges stem from the investigation of murder number 24 that happened on November 19th. As is already public in the affidavits, Irwin went to the daycare and picked up the grandchild of Philip Liberty, who was the decedent in murder number 24. Through the investigation, we determined that after picking up that child, Mr. Pentland left the child in circumstances that are less than desirable for a 2-year-old, thereby placing that child in danger of being able to access something in the residence where he was that could have hurt him or potentially led to his death. And so based on those facts, we were able to file a charge on Irwin Pentland. Since then, based on our investigation and some inconsistencies and other evidence, inconsistencies in Pentland's statement and other evidence that we've been able to acquire, we do believe Mr. Pentland is a suspect in the death of Philip Liberty, although we are not at the point of filing those charges at this time.
So, do you know if that information is correct that you provided as to how they knew each other?
Yes, I believe that they did have a long-standing relationship with each other, and so what was reported by us in the affidavit is is how they knew each other.
Could you give us a little sketch of the timeline between the child being taken on the 18th and whatever time the homicide occurred on the 19th?
No, I don't know those times off the top of my head without looking.
I mean, just ballpark even?
Well, Mr. Pentland picked up the child at about 3 p.m. on the 18th.
Right.
And then it was in the morning on the 19th at approximately 10:30 in the morning is when the neighbor called after noticing a difference in Mr. Liberty's habits and making her suspicious.
Had visited. So
correct. That's when she called, so 10:30 the next morning.
When roughly did the homicide occur?
We don't have a specific time.
But that morning, the morning of the 19th?
I couldn't answer that without speculating.
So sometime between the 18th and the
correct.
Morning. Okay.
Correct.
Do we know if Liberty was alive when the child was picked up, or?
We don't know the exact time, no.
Why is this not kidnapping?
Well, he didn't forcibly take the child. You know, he went to the daycare, gave them the story that's reported in the affidavit here, provided identification, and took the child. So there's nothing to indicate that he was trying to hide the child, other than the fact, initially trying to hide the child from his wife, as he reported. It just doesn't fit the elements of kidnapping.
So with him being a potential murder suspect, were you asked to increase his bond, or what will you do about that?
Well, the bond that he's in on is $200,000, and so we don't have any plans of asking the judge to increase that.
But was that high amount suggested to help keep him in custody while you potentially try to build a murder case against him?
No, we don't suggest bonds to judges. So that's what the judge assigned to it.
He has apparently been inconsistent and contradicted himself. What would you describe as his demeanor or level of cooperation at this point with you?
At this point, he's asserted his rights to not speak to us. He did speak to us initially, and when that discussion became more accusatory, then he chose not to speak any further.
How would you characterize the relationship between Pentland and Mr. Liberty?
According to all accounts, they were friends. Frequently hung out together and talked, and so there's nothing to indicate any anger between them at all.
I did mention that Mr. Pentland's statement mentioned that there was some sort of proposed business arrangement.
There was. I'm not sure of the exact details of that, but there was some sort of proposed business arrangement between the two.
As far as with the child, When Mr. Pentland, did he take the child back to the daycare the next morning?
Yes, he did.
And then was it during the course of that day that people at the daycare learned that, about what was going on?
That's correct.
And the child was returned to the family?
Yeah,
or-
returned back to the family.
So the child spent the night of the 18th at the mother's home,
At Pentland's mother's home. correct.
Pentland's mother's home, and then Pentland took him back to the center the morning of the 19th.
Correct. And then at 10:30 that morning is when Mr. Liberty was found deceased.
Does Liberty have custody of the child?
There is an arrangement between Liberty and his son. As to whether that is court-ordered or just an arrangement between them, I couldn't answer that right now. I just don't know off the top of my head.
But he was a primary caretaker?
He was the primary caregiver of the baby.
What specifically was considered dangerous about Pentland's mother's home?
Well, as you can read in the affidavit, the child was a normal 2-year-old who's able to move around and pull on things, and the house is not child-proof. There was cabinets, so he could have accessed chemicals. The stove was gas, and he could very easily reach the dials. And so it was, there were boxes of things stacked throughout the house that he could have pulled down on himself. And so it's just not a safe environment for a child. First of all, it's not a child-proof house because it's not a place where a child lived. And then to be left there alone for a 2-year-old in a strange location, the propensity for something bad to happen was great. So that's what he
How
was charged
long
with.
was he alone? How many hours?
According to Pentland, it was several hours the first night, and then several hours the next morning.
Was the child injured at all?
The child was not. No,
Any,
Where is the child now?
it's with the family.
any criminal history from Pentland that would?
Yeah, he's on probation for aggravated robbery.
One more question? Okay, thank y'all.
All right.
Is it possible,